before we get the interview going, I want to remind you guys about my sponsor, Speed King Signs out of Palmetto. If you want to have your design made into some signs or business cards, maybe you need a car wrap or some shirts, anything you need, call my guys at Speed King Signs at 941-722-SIGN. That is 941-722-SIGN. And call them and tell them that Ryan Hoppe sent you for a badass deal. All right, let's get this show going.
This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing. You're listening to Hoppe Hour.
What up? What is happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I'm a big fan of this guy that we have on the phone line whenever he's on the Opie and Jimmy show. On the phone line is the very funny comedian known as Sam Morril. What's up, dude?
How are you, man? You have a very intense voice. I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, because we were just talking off the air. I'm like, hey, Sam, how's it going? Did you ever expect me to come out running like that?
No, you came out with a full head of steam. I liked it.
So how has everything been, man? You seem like a guy that's always doing something, which I respect. Is that true?
Yeah, we're just on the road for 11 days. I just got back to New York yesterday. I was in Peoria, Illinois, and then Winnipeg, Canada. So I've been on the road a bit. I go back out in a week or so. So yeah, I feel busy, but it's not. You know, you go places and then you kind of have a lot of downtime, so it's not as busy as you would think, you know? Like, I work at night, but during the day it's a lot of isolation.
What's it like when you go from a small town in Illinois to then a sort of major town up north? Like, isn't that a weird transition?
Yeah, it is. Peoria is pretty small. It's where Richard Pryor's from, so I guess there's some history. I saw the Richard Pryor statue. But then, Winnipeg's a little bigger. I guess, to be honest, I spend a lot of time in my room, so I don't really notice until the shows. The shows are bigger in Winnipeg, you know?
Yeah. Are you one of those guys where when you go to a town, you don't really go out drinking or going to the clubs? Are you more of a guy that hangs out in your room trying to get ready for the show?
I do a little bit of both. You know, I used to go out and party way harder when I was a little younger. The road was a little more new and exciting, and now I just really hate performing hungover. You know, it's not easy for me. You know, I already have just a really shitty energy about me, so I have to power up on coffee. I'll have a few drinks throughout the show, but, you know, I kind of manage it much better than I used to. I think it's a balance you have to find that works for you, but I used to love to party. Also, I'm in a relationship. When you're single, you know, you're way more excited to go out drinking and meet some girl there, but in a relationship, I'll read a book, I'll watch a movie.
Isn't it weird how once you get a girlfriend, things change? Like, I'm in my first relationship with this girl that I met a month ago, and she's great, but it's weird, like, when you go out to the bars, like, you have to walk with her and make sure she's by your side. Like, isn't it weird that, like, you can't just roam free?
I mean, I kind of am roaming free, but it's, you know, there's maybe an imaginary leash, right? Because, you kind of don't want what you once wanted. You're in kind of a more comfortable place, I think. If she breaks up with me, I'll probably revert back to my old ways for a while, but, you know, there is something about a relationship that definitely, I don't want to say relaxes you, but definitely makes you want different things, I think.
Well, here's what's the relaxing part about it. Whenever anybody gets laid, that's pretty relaxing. You know what I mean? Like, you go from never getting laid and you're single to then you have a girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, things just change when you can relax, you know?
Yeah, and I like to try to be productive on the road. Like, I look at it as time to get work done because it's a place where I feel like I won't be quite as bothered, which is probably not true because with phones these days and social media and emails, like, you're going to get bothered regardless, but it feels like it's a place I should be productive, so I try to be.
Now, what does your girl think of your humor? Because you're a bit edgy. My show's edgy too, but it's not like shock jock crap. But like, she supports it. She knows that the show comes first. So how does your girl approach your radio, or I mean your comedy career?
She can handle it. I don't think it's anything. She's a comic too. She gets it, you know. And I don't say anything too crazy about her, you know. It's all pretty much coming from the right place, I think. I've dated girls that weren't crazy about certain jokes. I think on some level, everyone's a little flattered to be in the act, even if they act like they're not. Like I just did. My uncle was on a date, and I guess he brought her back, and they were watching my Comedy Central special, and I did a joke about him kind of trashing his ex-wife, and he didn't know about it. So he was like, I think a part of him was like, what the hell? But then he was also like, oh, that's cool. So I was in a special, you know? So I think everyone kind of looks the same way. Like, if she does a joke making fun of me, I'm kind of like, it's kind of cool that I made it in some way or another, you know?
But have you ever had a joke or a time when you've been in front of a whole crowd and maybe your friends or your family didn't approve of something? Like, have you had to take things out of your act before?
I don't think I have, no. Sometimes my mom will make a comment like, you know, that's like, you're better than that or something like that. Your mom never wants to see you the way, any other way than you being her son. So, you know, you can't write comedy for your parents. You're probably not being honest enough or digging deep enough if you're writing it to please your mom. And that's not saying that she can't enjoy parts of it, but she's probably not going to enjoy all of it.
My mom's the same way, dude. It's weird. Like, she supports me and she helps me, but she's Roman Catholic, and she doesn't really like what I do. She listens to all my shows, but deep down, it's sort of weird how, like, parents are proud of us, but they don't really like what we do. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's that they don't like what they do. I think that they see us in a certain way, and when we kind of do anything that they think is beneath us, they want to have a talk. Like, my mom she does a similar thing where she'll hear a podcast or something, and she'll be like, I heard this podcast you on, and I'm like, oh crap, something's coming, you know? And she'll say something along the lines of, you know, you should think more highly of yourself. I think it's more of like, I think the parents, they want better for you, is how I see it. I don't see it as a way like they're disappointed, really, but maybe it's a form of disappointment. I don't know.
What's it like when you have that talk with your mom and dad and you're like, Mom, I want to go into comedy? Because when I said that I wanted to go into radio, they knew the passion I had, so they had my back. But what's it like when you tell them that you want to be a comedian?
Well, my mom's an artist, and I think she kind of understood the impulse and the need to kind of have an outlet. I don't think they were thrilled at first because I think they saw it as a way for me to use drink. There was a lot of fear, I think, to find stability. My mom would often say things like, how are you going to find a woman that's up to your standards in this type of life? And, you know, I'd be like, I'm a kid. Yeah, who thinks like that? You know, I think it's a lot of fear and worry, and my mom had anxiety that could, you know, it could feel boundaryless at times. And there was definitely a lot of fear from my parents. You know, my brother and sister are lawyers. They chose paths with, you know, trajectories that are more common, I think, you know, and not in a, you know, in a way where they kind of, and then my brother, you know, went a little less common route, and in the end of it, he's at the DA's office. But I think they were scared, for sure. But now, you know, once you start making a living at it, they're, I think, impressed. I remember they saw me in Times Square open for Jim Jeffries.
Yeah.
And it was a really big venue. It was at Best Buy Theater. It was probably like 1,500 to 2,000 people. And I think that was one where they're like, oh, wow, this great comic asked Sam to open for him in this really cool packed venue. I think that was, they might, maybe ask them, it might be a different moment that clicked for them. But I think that was one where they were like, wow, he's making a living and he's opening for this terrific comic.
What was the one show that you had where you knew this was your thing to do? Like for me, it's when I got to interview Jim Norton when he was here in Tampa Bay, and that was one of the most surreal moments in my life. So for you, what was the moment when you're like, I'm good at this?
I don't know, because I probably had that moment when I was, before I earned that moment.
Yeah.
You know, because you kind of have maybe a good set that you didn't earn when you're early on, and that keeps you in it. You got to have those sets, because, or you got to be delusional as hell to keep going, because no one is that good. I've seen a couple exceptions, but almost everyone's terrible when they start. Even comics who go on to be great, you know? So I don't know. I can't really locate like an exact moment, but there were definitely a few moments where I started to do pretty well in competitions. And that was one where I was like, well, I'm beating comics that I think are good. I mean, I was beating comics I respected. So I was like, well, these guys are good and they're making careers out of this. So, you know, I was like, maybe I could do this.
Isn't it weird when you first begin, you don't really know what you want to do? Like when I first began doing radio, I went for the shock jock crap saying whore, bitch. But then you have to realize that being a professional in 2016 is the thing to do. So what was your approach? Were you trying to overcompensate when you first got into comedy?
I think, you know, when you're young, you don't know who you are and you don't know who you are as a person. So to know who you are as a performer is even more difficult, right? It takes a while to figure out who you are and your identity on stage, and I definitely was not myself. I was definitely someone else. I was definitely a more extreme version of myself as a kid. I was, you know, a drunk kid who was just figuring stuff out. I don't think I was quite as honest with who I was. I mean, I lacked an awareness. That now I'm acting like I figured it out now, but I definitely have a better grip on it now than I did then. And yeah, it took a while for sure. I definitely, and you have friends that kind of will hold you accountable if you make the right friends. You have friends who will kind of say things like, you know, this is really interesting about you, and you don't talk about that. Or, oh, why do you always do that? Stuff like friends who they won't say necessarily in a mean way. Some of them do, and sometimes that makes you pay better attention to it. But I definitely, it took me time.
Who are some friends and mentors that have given you advice and helped you during your comedy career?
Some guys who have been really helpful, you know, Dave Attell and Gary Goldman, and Jim Jeffries was helpful. People that I respect who have been generous with their time and with other things too, you know. Attell is kind of just all about punchlines and jokes, and I always admired him since I was a kid. And I think it was about trying to just always be original, and he's so original, and I get to watch him so often, which is so cool, you know. So Dave was very, you know, I remember I did a couple gigs with him, I remember in theaters, and Dave would bring me back out after I went on at the end of his set, because Dave will get bored sometimes, so he'll feel like, well, let's just riff, let's figure out some riffs, because he figures out material doing that sometimes, because his brain is like a supercomputer for jokes, you know. So he brings me back out and we'll riff a little bit, and I think the first couple of times he thought I was nervous, and who wouldn't be being out there with him, you know. But I slowly got better at it, and he kind of made a comment like, I want you to get better at that, and he helped me get much better and more confident, and things like that, being present to the moment. Because you think with a guy who could write jokes as well as Dave that he would just rely on the jokes, but he also is so present and can riff on anything and can handle anything. I mean, he might be the best club comic ever. I mean, for my money, you know. Gary Goldman was a guy that I was very influenced by too, because he broke things down. He would just bludgeon a subject till he got everything out of it, and he could go clean, he can go edgy, he's a versatile writer, and I like the way the way he prepared. He was very professional. I remember opening for Gary once years ago, and he's like, all right, breakfast tomorrow morning? I was like, sure. And he's like, all right, see you down at 8 a.m. And I was just like, what the fuck did I just agree to? You know, like we were living very different lives. And I watched how he was. He was like, all right, after breakfast time to write. And I was like, okay, this guy's so disciplined. So you learn from people you work with. And Dave is the same way. Dave just has a different sleep schedule. And then with Jim Jeffries, I was very inspired by his storytelling ability because he really just knew how to just hold a room. He really has like this ability to break a story down, to give it beats, to give it heart, to give it an edge. I mean, there's a lot in his stories that he makes look really easy that really is not easy. And I think working with him early on pushed me to try to start telling stories on stage.
Now, going back to what you said, guys like Dave and Jim are all original comics that aren't hacky. So what is the approach when you're a comic to come up with jokes so that you're not taking them, even if it's an accident? How do you make sure that your act's original?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. I have friends who I run bits by and say, is this done? Sometimes if a joke feels too simple, sometimes the joke will just come to you perfectly in form, or sometimes it sounds too easy as it is, and you're like, oh, someone else is a bit similar to this. I mean, Attell is the most paranoid of anyone, and it's hilarious the way he'll text me. He's like, hey, do you have a bit about a midget and gay marriage? And I'm just like, what are you talking? Of course not. And then you see him the next time doing that bit. It's like the funniest bit you've ever heard somehow. But yeah, so people are paranoid. You got to be paranoid because you want to be original. I mean, we're in this age of theft and intellectual property theft with these memes, like characters like the fat Jewish online. And here's the risk that we run, which is just completely unfair. The last Conan I did, I closed on a joke about how people are boring, and whenever someone bores you with a story, I feel my hand shaking and reach toward my phone, and I say, because my phone doesn't bore me like that. And I say, I'm trained in YouTube videos. I wish I could do that with people. They're telling you a boring story, you tap their face, and they're like, all right, 30 more seconds. You know what I mean? That's a joke. That joke gets stolen as a meme by these Instagram people with like 6 million followers. So then I see a comment on my Conan video, oh, I've heard that joke before. That's not his joke. And that's so fucked up because it is my joke. And that meme wasn't created until after my Conan. I've done the research. It's an original thought. And that happened with another joke of mine that the fat Jewish took. And, of course, you email these guys. He didn't get back to me, but he pulled down the picture. So it's like they know they're doing something wrong, but they don't care. And we care as comics. The originality is so much to us. We hone these bits in clubs. We develop them. And when these bits are just cherry-picked and taken from us, it's creepy and it's gross. It's so invasive. Like you ever read in a book on a plane or a subway or a magazine, and someone like looks over your shoulder, and it feels kind of weird because their thought is your thought for that moment, right? It feels like too intimate. Well, this is a thought that we had that was completely unique, and they're just taking it and taking credit for it. So to me, it's creepy on so many deeper levels. And the fact that they're morally bankrupt enough to feel no remorse is grotesque to me. So we go to these lengths to make sure our ideas are original, and then these people just are like, oh, we don't care. That's not. They call themselves curators. There's not a thing. It's not a thing in comedy. There are no curators. So the lengths I go to, I have friends, comics I'm close with, who have encyclopedic brains when it comes to these things. Like they know every joke, and they're like, oh, I haven't heard it. Sometimes you'll hear a bit on a similar subject, but the take is fresh enough, and you think that's okay to do because because there's going to be a million airplane bits, but if you have a really good take on it, right? So I don't think a premise has to be hacky necessarily, as long as your take is original. Like Men and Women is like the oldest premise in the book, right? But I have tons of jokes about that I think haven't been done. And so do so many people.
Now, what's your email like to guys that take your joke? Like, do you get mad at the hack known as the fat Jew? Do you take the approach of like, what are you doing, man? Like, what's that email like when you approach the fat Jew?
I said something along the lines of, this is not your joke, and I know you know it, and I'm curious to why you think it's okay to just do this. It's more, I'm just baffled. It's not really being like, you scumbag. It's not an aggressive tone. That's kind of not going to solve anything, But my thing, but also it's like I don't have time to go to war with these people. I've done it before. I don't have the time to waste. I mean, I think about what the people I look up to, how they would handle it, and I think they get mad, but then they move on because I have other jokes to write. I'm not going to, this is not a war I have time for. It's not how I want to spend my time.
Plus, these guys aren't getting the exposure that you get going on TV, going on Opie Radio. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, they're just very jealous of the publicity that you and Joe Mackey and everyone gets. You know what I mean?
They are and they aren't, man. Some of these guys have like 6 or 7 million followers on Instagram. They have following. I mean, the fat Jewish guy, he probably made a ton of money. Think about the money he made just doing this. I saw him he'll write things like, oh, I write more than any of these other guys. Well, he might be more active, but he's not writing more original content. And he got to write these shows that he got based on creating this personality that was stolen. I mean, he built himself up with other people's stuff, and then he got the opportunity. You can get opportunities based on hard work and talent the way, you know, my peers have.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man. It's no different than these guys in radio who have the wacky names, will leave it nameless, and then just copied the hell out of Howard in the 90s and the 2000s. Like, it takes a certain person, Sam, to be able to look themselves in the mirror and know that they have no originality and they're not talented at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Do you think they have that awareness? I don't know if they do. I don't know if they care. I mean, there's originality in our world is everything. But to these people, I don't think it is. I mean, this is why the Amy Schumer thing was so ridiculous, because Amy is she cares so much about comedy. And I was like, you're attacking Amy? People to attack, and you're going after the wrong people. And that's why I got so annoyed. I mean, I'd be on Opie and Jim a couple of times in the span of 2 weeks. They were going crazy against Amy. And you're like, did you hear Amy's interview? It was so sincere. It was so bothered. She even called some of her jokes hacky. I'm like, she has awareness that, and she's holding herself accountable in a way that these other people don't. She also is not a thief. I mean, it was a very annoying thing to deal with, because it was like, all these comedy fans, they might be coming from the right place, but they're just missing the point.
Yeah, I thought it was weird too. I thought it was them maybe being very jealous that she's doing so well. She has sold out shows. She had a movie that was great, like Trainwreck. To me, I just think these comics want to be her, and they're mad that she's younger and much more successful at this point. You know what I mean?
Well, they liked Amy when she was Jim's opener, and when she was, when she was coming up, and it's like, and then they're like, oh, it's because I think it is because she's famous. I think it's because she got to a point where she's calling kind of the shots in the business, and people don't like, they like to root for the people on the way up and not once they're there. You know, then they get like, they're like, oh, this person's everywhere. Well, they're everywhere because you got them there. You know, it's like the same people that are like mad at Kevin Hart for being in so many movies. It's like, well, the fans put him there, and then you're saying there's like this ADD culture we're living in, and the same goes for those jokes that are stolen. Whereas these jokes that are stolen, no one cares about the author. That's kind of how these guys rise up, because they wouldn't rise up with the author probably, but without the author, they're like, oh, this guy's so funny, not this guy. The quotes this guy posted so funny. But the people look at, the people don't really care about the authorship, I don't think. So it's like, they're like, okay, move on. Like, there's like an ADD to that, I think, where you like it and then you're done with it. It's like next, and it's always in that motion. And you have to be so prolific to keep up with that. And that's probably where these curators, like, I have to put stuff out. And they feel that pressure. And they're like, well, they're not going to write that much good stuff. So they're just going to put out that good stuff of someone else.
Is it ever possible for a comic to be like overexposed and you have too much exposure at once? Do you think that's a reason why all the big name comics sometimes annoy people, is just because they're doing so well?
Because they annoy people because of their success, you're saying?
Yeah, because like Kevin Hart's in a ton of movies and Amy Schumer's in a movie and she has a TV show. Do you think it's the case that sometimes people feel like they see them too often and it's overexposure?
Yeah, maybe, because I think that's also the business. It's like, other hilarious people. Yeah, you don't have to put Paul Rudd in every movie. It's like you get to the theater and you're like, yeah, I like Paul Rudd, but then you see like 3 trailers and he's in all 3 of them, So it's like the machine of Hollywood more than the person. So they're mad at the person for being in everything, but if they really like, well, you're mad at them for not turning down all this work and money. It's just misplaced frustration, I think.
Now, what's your approach? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Would you want to be as big as Amy? Like, where do you want to be when it comes to comedy in 2021?
I mean, yeah, I would take Amy's gig. That sounds good. I don't know. I'd like to be doing what I'm doing, but to much, much bigger crowds, obviously. I'd like to be doing what I do now, but to have a following of people that really want to see my new stuff and come out to see me. And to just be funnier than I am now, to just be... to just have a ton of new stuff and to be really a strong act and to be considered one of the best headliners in the country.
Now, does that come with just doing shows and just getting like better, or have you thought of ways to improve as a comic and to get bigger? Like, how does that work in the comedy world?
I think you just have to keep being prolific and true to yourself and really just do the sets, just do the work. Doing the work is it's a big part of it, man. I mean, you just got to get out there and just hustle. Get a few sets a night if you can, write a lot, and try to keep cranking out late night sets, specials, all that stuff. And hopefully the stuff keeps getting stronger. My point of view keeps getting stronger and truer and true to myself. And hopefully I can just keep unlocking stuff in myself that, this sounds corny as hell, but just keep pushing it. Like I'm lucky when I'm surrounded by friends who are so driven and funny that it forces me to take it up a level.
Now, what are some of the topics that you address in Class Act? Why should people go to iTunes and purchase it?
It's an album I'm really proud of, man. I mean, it's got a lot of jokes. It's a lot of punchlines, man. A lot of hard punchlines. So I think it's about 50 minutes long, but it's going to be punchlines all the way. A lot of quotable short jokes that you can steal and make into a meme. And I don't know. I think it's an album I think is good, man. It's going to be, I mean, I say this to myself, it's going to be hard to top. For me, at least, in the next couple of years. So I'm really trying to crank out stuff that lives up to it, because as of now, I think it's solid.
Now, how long does it take to make an album? Do you edit it a lot, or is it one where once you record it, you just then upload it pretty soon? Like, how long does it take to make a comedy album?
It took a little longer than normal because Comedy Central did it, and they have bigger fish to fry. I think they were in the process of letting Jon Stewart go, and I was like, how are we doing on the album? They're like, yeah, we got the biggest icon in comedy. I was like, right, sure. So I laid off a little and let them do their thing. It took a few months, but I don't think it has to. I think it's an exhausting process. Anyone who does this knows it. Like when you listen to your sets, you're just like, oh, I'm so sick of myself. So you have to see which jokes you want in, which ones you want out. I did 2 shows, so I used some jokes from the early show, some from the late, based on how I delivered it, based on how it played, So it's a pretty boring process, but you just are like, well, I got to do it. I'll get myself some good snacks. You talk yourself into doing it because you're like, I need to get it done. So, it's something you just have to do. It took a while.
Now, when you're not doing your act, what are some things you like to do in your free time so you don't burn out?
I like to play basketball. I like to watch movies. I like to take walks. I love New York City, man. this city a lot. So, I mean, just being on the road, it makes you appreciate the city so much. Like, I come back, I'm in Winnipeg, it's freezing. I come back here and I'm just walking around. Something's wrong with the climate, obviously, but I can just walk around freely in New York at the end of February. But, it's so great. The city's such a great walking city, so it's hard not to feel, lucky and inspired walking around New York.
Now, I'll be going there very soon for a business trip. What should I expect from New York City? I'm from Chicago, so that's a pretty big city. But what's the first impression I'm going to get from the Big Apple?
Well, it depends what part you go to, because there's so many different parts of Manhattan, so many different parts of Brooklyn. There's so many cool things. I mean, that's the cool thing about New York. Whatever you like, New York has it. What do you want to do? You'll find a good version of it in New York. It's such a diverse city, and I talked to someone in LA who was just shitting all over New York, just saying it's like the worst. And then you look at LA and you're like, well, this is not for everyone either. You look at the traffic, the weather is all LA has. They just bring up the weather all the time, and you're like, yeah, it's nice, but is that what you want? The quality of people in New York, for me, is so much higher. And obviously there's good people in LA, but for me, New York is it. There's something about New York that just, Woody Allen's movies for me are just, they really resonate. Like, I just had my girlfriend watch Hannah and Her Sisters, and I just love watching them walk around New York. I love Manhattan, Annie Hall, that stuff. And, I'm a diehard Knicks fan, so if you can get to the Garden, that's cool. Obviously the sports, whatever time of year you come, a Yankees or Mets game is a lot of fun. What kind of food do you like? There's some legendary spots that I like. I love a great bagel. That's from New York to me, is a great bagel. So Essa Bagel is a great spot if you want to go there. Peter Luger's the best steakhouse ever. Pricey, but if you're visiting, something you might want to check out. There's so many cool things in the city.
Now, dude, you might call me insane, man, but it might be because I'm from the Midwest and I'm very biased. But, dude, deep dish pizza any day is better than thin crust. There, I said it.
Really?
Yeah, man, I love it.
I'm going to Chicago next month, so I'll have to try. I'm doing Zanies next month, so I'll have to try deep dish. But I've always liked thin crust.
Dude, you have to get their hot dogs and their beef sandwiches when you're out there, man. That is the experience, because their hot dogs, their beef sandwiches, and their deep dish pizza make that city. But also, don't go on the west side, because it's like a war zone, man. Every single year, that city is going into worse turmoil. You know what I mean?
Chicago?
It's sad, dude. Like, it never was great, but it's getting bad.
Yeah, it's definitely upsetting to read about. It's really bad. Hopefully not near where I'm staying, but I've never been to Chicago. My first time.
What are some other places you like to visit in America? Do you like the South? Do you like the West Coast? Where do you like to visit?
I like cities that kind of have their own beat to them. I always love New Orleans. Kind of got its own thing going on. Definitely, there's a trashiness to it, but there's also like a soulfulness, and it's kind of a fun mix. I love New Orleans. I always had a good time in Atlanta for some reason. Atlanta's been fun because it's the South, but it's not really the South. I'm trying to think where else I really had a good time.
Have you been to Tampa Bay?
Tampa Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually coming back in August. I'm playing Side Splitters.
That's the spot to go to, man. I love Side Splitters, dude. This area embraces their comedy, man. You're going to have a great time down here. There's some legit comedians here.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be great. I've been to Side Splitters years ago as a feature, but this is my first time headlining, and I think it should be fun.
Before I let you go, where can people find your work online, and what are some of your upcoming shows?
Well, I have my album another comedian who's very funny. And Anya Marina, who's this amazing singer-songwriter. And we do a lot of relationship talk, we get a lot of emails, and we kind of help you with life advice, but the disclaimers that we don't know what we're talking about. So that's a good one. Check it out. Dates coming up. I'm going to be in Lansing, Michigan, at the Loft on March 8th. I'll be at Zanies in Chicago, March 9th through 13th. I'll be at Wiley's in Dayton, the 17th through 19th of March, and I'll be in a new club in Yonkers, March 25th through 26th, called Ha Comedy Club, and you can catch me on Red Eye and Fox News, March 7th, March 16th, and March 24th.
Well, dude, keep up the good work. I've had a lot of fun having you on the show, and I always enjoy when you're on Opie and Jimmy, dude.
Well, I appreciate you having me, man. I'm sorry it was so hard to peg down a date. I've been traveling a lot.
It's all good, man.
But have a great time when you visit here, and it was nice talking to you, man.
Same to you, man. Keep up the good work, Sam.
All right, take care, man. Thank you.
All right, bye. And that was comedian Sam Morril as he called into Hoppe Hour. Now, if you're a fan of Sam and you want to hear more of Hoppe Hour, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. All you have to do is go to the iPhone shop or Google Play and search up Hoppe Radio, and you can listen to all 90 of my interviews since July. Go to RyanHoppeRadio.com and tweet at me at RyanHoppeRadio. I'm a big fan of Sam's comedy. He is one of the comedians to look out for, and he is always funny when he is on the Opie and Jimmy show. So check it out. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.